Hello and welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This episode is part of a weekly series called Franchise Fridays, in which every Friday we will have an episode dedicated to helping you create freedom by owning a franchise. Now, my family has been in the franchising business for over 45 years. My brother and I took our family's franchise auto repair business and grew it from 6 locations to now 30, doing over $36 million a year. And one of the best ways that you can accelerate your growth as a franchisee is to surround yourself with other successful entrepreneurs who are a couple steps ahead of you. And for those with W-2 jobs who are looking to buy a franchise, you need a confidential community to ask questions and get support. So I've recently launched a free private community for people wanting to learn more about buying, opening, and scaling franchises. Go to brianbeers.com/community to learn more and join. So today I want to talk about legacy versus emerging brands. Partnering with the right franchise is by far the greatest decision you will make in the beginning. Pick the right one, you'll be off to the races. Pick the wrong one, and you'll be pushing a donkey up a hill. And so when it comes down to a legacy versus emerging brand, there's pros and cons on both sides. There's no magic bullet. There's no perfect franchise. A lot of this is what matches your skill set and what you're looking for. So first I want to talk about legacy brands and the pros of them. So legacy brands are ones that have been around for 20 plus years. Many of them have hundreds, if not thousands of locations. Many of them are retail focused and have strong recognition. Brands like Taco Bell, McDonald's, Midas, Planet Fitness, there's ServPro, Ace Hardware, Sports Clips, Molly Maid, Roto-Rooter, Rent-A-Center. The list could go on. As you're driving down the street and you go to your shopping center, there are a lot of the brands that are in there you'll recognize are legacy brands. So lots of units, existing units, means there's lots of opportunity to grow through acquisition within a legacy brand. Right? So if your goal is to get in with one and you want to grow through acquisition and buying other existing one, if there's 1,000 locations out there, you have a lot of opportunity compared to one that might have 100 locations or 50 locations, right? And legacy brands, another pro is they have legacy owners. So these are owners who have been in the brand for 10, 20, maybe 30 years. And many of them are baby boomers who are now nearing retirement. So they will be passing down the franchise to their kids, a key employee, or looking to sell it. And that creates opportunities for you to grow through acquisition, right? We have lots of units, we have lots of legacy owners, that's a great combination. And these brands have been through multiple economic cycles. They've been through the ups, they've been through the downs. Many of them have evolved over the years. We look, from my personal experience with Midas in the 70s when it started, it was all mufflers and exhaust. And today, exhaust is 10% of our business because stainless steel has been invented. And the exhaust systems don't rust like they used to. But the business has evolved now to total car care and with brakes and suspension and oil changes and diagnostic and electrical. And over the next 10 or 15, 20 years, it's going to continue to evolve, right? As we get into EVs and more complicated technologies. And that is the case with a lot of these brands over the years. And they will continue to adapt as time changes, which is awesome. But there are some downsides too. So some of the cons when it comes to the legacy brands are, with the older brand, the founders of the brand, like the founders of Midas, the founders of, Sports Clips, or, I'm making these up here, but most of them at this level are not running the franchise. They have passed the baton to another leadership team. That leadership team could have stayed in place for decades, or it could be changed up every couple of years. It's possible that the franchise is sold from one private equity company who then, increases the number of units and the valuation, and then they flip it to another private equity who might have the same business plan to invest and to flip it, or, another private equity company might have a plan that's a strip it down, right? Cut out all the corporate overhead, shut down failing units, and so that's the con, is sometimes when these brands have been around for a while, they kind of just cycle from, one group to another group to another group, which, changes the leadership and changes the direction of the company. And, you could spend years establishing a relationship with someone and then they're gone. And so it's a con. And I mean, it's a risk in any franchise, but especially in legacy brands, because, every time that leadership changes, franchisees are affected in one way or another. Sometimes it's a very good thing. Sometimes it means we have a new owner, we have a clear vision, we're developing strategic partnerships. Maybe they already have, there's synergies, there's capital, but then other times it's not. So it's just something to be aware of. And not all private equity companies are bad. Some run a buy and hold model in which they acquire companies and then they never sell them. They look to then create synergies through additional purchases. Maybe they're saving some costs at the front end, the back end of the business in the office. But, their goal is to really help franchisees increase their sales, cross market, and maybe even give franchisees the opportunities to own multiple brands, within the family of network. So pretty interesting, but something to be aware of. Another con is that legacy brands are located in legacy neighborhoods. So neighborhoods that have been established for a long time. In many cases, that's where these locations, back in the day when they were built up or when they were open, did really well. But now they're kind of on the downswing, right? And all the new hot markets that everybody's moving to, that all the brand new developers are, that your Starbuckses and your Whole Foods and all these new money's going into, may not have legacy brands there. And so you got to be willing to then go and invest in this area and open up new locations. So the final thing, I touched a little bit, but kind of the summary is we've got legacy owners who are ready to retire, which could lead to, some easy buy-in opportunities. And sometimes those legacy owners are a little out of touch, or they're just not making the investment that they're looking to, which helps you create some easy wins. And then lots of units means fragmented ownership, which helps you roll up the strategy. And finally, legacy neighborhoods, pros and cons to that, but something to definitely be aware of. So now we get into emerging brands. So the definition of an emerging brand is one that has been in franchising for kind of 1 to 5 years. They have somewhere between 10 to 50 open units, and that 50 might go kind of a little bit higher, but they're pretty new. They, have proof of concept in that, maybe they've opened a number of units, maybe they've sold a ton of units, they're still in development. A lot of people are behind the concept, believe in the vision, and are moving it forward. And so, the thing to be considered here is there are 300 new franchise concepts every year, and there's probably another 300 that stop franchising, right? Where maybe they open up 1 or 2 locations and it just doesn't really work. It's harder than they thought, whatever the case is. And, they kind of go into a different direction. So then the question is, when does an emerging brand make sense? Given there's lots of pros to the legacy, I'm in a legacy business, I think there's lots of pros to it, but I also see, in some cases, there's a lot of pros in an emerging brand. And the biggest one is that they are providing a new solution to solve a new problem, right? Maybe it's technology. There's a number of concepts, and there's a couple of fitness concepts out there that I'm actually becoming passionate about that use technology is the key differentiator, right? We look at Orange Theory, right, is a big one that is not emerging anymore. It's pretty established. But the key differentiator, what made them successful was a technology-driven concept of, connecting your body and kind of giving these, in real-time performance as composed to just riding a bike, right? And so if you were on the ground floor of Orange Theory and you opened up locations when it was, very early on, you could buy a lot of territory at a great price. And it was a technology-driven thing. Another one could be a food trend. For example, Nashville hot chickens, getting pretty popular. There's a couple of concepts popping up that are solely Nashville hot chicken, very niche focused, very simple menus, very easy to operate. A little bit of a trend maybe, but it's something that appeals to a lot of people. There could be a solution that is more of a macro trend, right? So senior care, we talk about, the silver tsunami and the increase over the next decade of the amount of seniors who are going to need, care and different needs. And so there's some concepts out there that focus in on, mobility equipment, for example. There's a company that sells and services, wheelchairs, power chairs, power lifters up the stairs and provide service. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to need power scooters, and they're going to use them a lot and abuse them, and they're going to need people to come and fix them. And so there's going to be this kind of new industries that get established with seniors and getting older. And then there's other things that have never been franchised before. So there's a concept that I'm passionate about too. It's drug testing. So when we look at like the drug testing options out there, you've got your Quest diagnostic, you've got your maybe patient first, or urgent cares can kind of do them, but there's nobody really in the franchise drug testing space. And so there's a concept, it's non-medical, just like urine and hair. So you don't need nurses, you don't need medical licenses, super simple model to operate, very low cost to get into it. Somewhat scalable, that you can open up multiple locations within a territory. So never been franchised, has a niche there. Pretty interesting. And so, a lot of times, when it's emerging brand, you're buying less into the brand name and more into the system. So for example, this drug testing concept, nobody knows the name. You put it up on the billboard out there in a strip center. Nobody's going to say, oh, I know this drug testing company, right? Like, you're not buying the brand versus, when somebody buys into Midas, they're buying the brand name of Midas because it's been around for so long, and it kind of guarantees, you're going to have business every day. You're buying more into the system, into the business model, into the founders, into the vision, the things that are a little bit more intangible. That's what you're kind of putting your chips behind and believing in. And so it's important to understand that. And some of the other pros are, you get to work directly, with the founding team. Like, you get on the ground floor, you're going to be able to work with the guy who created it and who's grown it. And, this may not apply to everyone and every concept, but a lot of times, you could create a friendship with them, and you'll have text communication and like, hey, I have this question, I have this. And maybe you have an idea. It's like, if we're getting involved in a brand, given our vast experience in franchise and success, like, I'm going to have an opinion of things, right? Like, things that are working in my business and in our brand. And if I think I can take some of those elements and add it to another brand that I'm now invested in order to kind of grow, not only my stores, but to grow the whole system, because that in turn increases the value of my locations. Like, I'm going to do that. And so, that's the benefit, right? If you're coming into the game with a lot of experience, and whether it's in franchising or whatever experience, where you can have a direct impact to help, from the ground floor, shape the business and like really, really make a difference, it might be attractive to you. So, and in the beginning, you think about it, like, on the flip side, the founder really needs their initial franchisees to succeed. Like, if they really want to grow it from 10 locations or 50 locations to, 100 or 1,000, they have really big plans. Like, it's this whole like compounding curve where those first ones matter significantly. None of those first ones can fail, right? They really need to prove the concept over and over and over again in the beginning, because the franchisees are taking risk, right? There's no track record. They're buying into the concept. They're buying into that person. And so I think that's, it's a two-way bet. You're betting on them, and they're really betting on you. And this is a partnership. At the end of the day, all franchising is a partnership. And they don't want to partner with people who just want to give them money and say, all right, go do it. They want to partner with people who see the vision and can help them execute it. And I don't want to say that legacy brands don't care about failures, but mathematically, if a franchisor with 1,000 units loses one location, that's a 0.1% change in their number of units, right? If you're looking at 2,000 units, 3,000 units, 4,000 units, like, you're getting to the Papa John's, the Domino's of the world, like tons and tons of units. Like, you open up a bunch of locations that fail, like, the change in their little graph of units is, it's micro number, versus if you're involved with a franchise that has 10 units, 20 units, 50 units, like, your 1 or 2 or 3 locations could represent a significant percentage of them. And so they have to report all this in their franchise disclosure documents, right? Of openings, of closures, of transfers, all this stuff. And it's very important for these new brands that their franchise succeed. And so, you both have a lot to gain, and you both have a lot to lose. And so, I don't know, it's interesting. And so, I think when we talk about the risks of emerging brands is that there's no track record, right? You're betting on the person, you're betting on yourself on executing this model. That's, a lot of it's in theory. Like they might have in their FDDs disclosing one location of financials. They might have 15 getting open. They might have 100 sold, right? And so like, there's not this huge track record and paperwork where you can build all these financial models and you can build out, all these things based on historicals. They just don't have it. The historicals aren't there. You're betting on the concept. And so that's what it really comes down to. And so to wrap this thing up, when does it make sense? If your legacy makes sense, if you really want to grow through acquisition, you want to grow turnarounds, or you want to buy a location that's like losing money, maybe it has a bad reputation, and you want to like get this thing turned around. And you want an industry that's like tried and true: house cleaning, tires, oil changes, brakes, painting, different senior care, right? Like perfect opportunities in legacy brands. But if you want to get into an emerging brand, you're going to, it's all going to be through development. So it's all new locations that you're going to be building from the ground up. You're going to be spending time, instead of turning around locations, you're going to be spending time scouting new locations, territories, and really just building it all from the ground up. And these aren't going to be your house cleaning, tire changes, painting. Like these are going to be new concepts, new business models that could be pretty exciting. Do it. So anyhow, there's no perfect answer. There's no magic bullet when it comes to franchising. It's all about finding the right franchise for you that matches your skill set, your capital, your desired returns, and in your market. I think it's really important to be local. And I think, if you, love a concept, but the only place it can be is an hour away, 2 hours away, a plane ride away, it's going to be a lot harder for you to, grow that into the business that you want it to be when you're first starting out. And so, all those things are important. As I mentioned earlier, if you're just getting started in the franchising journey, the best thing you can do is join my free community, brianbeers.com/community. We have a Facebook group. We have some active discussions. I host calls. It's going to hopefully be every 2 weeks or so, live calls where we can kind of get questions answered. The topic like this is a perfect one to weigh the pros and cons. And like I said, there's no right answer. There's nothing to say, hey, open up new concepts and you'll do great. Open up, legacy brands and you'll do great. It's all about what you're looking for. And that's what I think is really awesome about franchising, is fits for everybody. So that is all I have for today. If you have any questions on anything I talked about, shoot me a message on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm very, reachable. I love hearing feedback. And if there's anything you were looking for me to cover in these podcasts, like I said, I'd love to hear it. So that's all I got for today. Cheers.